Welcome to Audiobook 365 Stories.
About 4 years ago, I saw a sign on a quiet street in London. It said, Dolls Hospital. Operations from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. I passed this street often because it was a shortcut to Moody's, a big library. Every time, I saw the sign and smiled. I wondered who the doctor was for all these dolls. I wanted to go inside, but in London, people are always busy. I might never have entered, but something happened at home. One morning, I went downstairs and heard loud crying. It was my friend's little girl, Millicent. I called her Brown Eyes because she had big, warm brown eyes. She was a sweet child, and her tears made me sad. "What's wrong, my dear?" I asked, trying to move her hands away from her face. "Bella is dead," she cried. Bella was her favorite doll. She had blue eyes and golden hair. I had even helped make clothes for her. Now, Bella lay on a chair, broken. Her neck was snapped, and her head was off her body. Then I suddenly remembered the doll's hospital. "Brown Eyes," I said, "I think Bella can get better. Her neck is broken, but some people get better after breaking their bones." She looked up, her eyes shining with tears. "It is a very bad accident. Do you really think Bella can be well again?" "I hope so. I will take her to the hospital." "The hospital?" she asked. "That is where Mary Ann went when she had a fever. She stayed 6 weeks. Will Bella be gone for 6 weeks?" "I think she will come back sooner, maybe in 1 week." In 5 minutes, I was walking to the doll's hospital. Bella was in a basket wrapped warmly. I felt very responsible as I hurried to the shop. When I opened the door, a bell rang. A tiny woman stood there. At first, I thought she was a child in long clothes. But when I looked closer, I saw she was an adult, a dwarf. She wore a long black dress. Her black hair was pulled back, and her face was plain but kind. She spoke warmly. "How can I help you?" I showed her Bella. She took the doll carefully. "Poor little beauty," she said. "Yes, I can fix her." Just then, someone called Sally. "Sally." "Yes, Lady Jane." "I'm coming," the woman said. A door opened, and a beautiful lady stood there. The hospital was simple. A big table held many broken dolls, some with no legs, no arms, or no hair. But there were also dolls that Sally had already healed. On a shelf, there were many things needed for the hospital: white glue, boxes of sawdust, doll legs and arms, wigs, everything a broken doll might need. There were also a few wooden stools. Standing in the doorway was Lady Jane. She looked like a big doll, but with a soul. She was about 12 years old, wearing a blue dress with a blue ribbon in her fair hair. Her face was soft and pink, and her big blue eyes looked serious and curious. "I will be done soon, Lady Jane," said Sally. The girl turned away, but not before I noticed something strange. She wore a small locket on a golden chain. It seemed unusual in this simple shop, and my curiosity grew. After the door closed, I asked, "Does she live here?" "Yes," Sally said proudly. "In a way, she is my child." I hesitated to ask more, but Sally continued. "I first saw Lady Jane 8 years ago. A man named Jacopo had her. He played a hand organ in the streets, and she walked beside him. People gave her money because she was so pretty. She never smiled except when she held out her little hat for coins. I was 16, working in a toy shop, dressing and fixing dolls. I lived in the same street as Jacopo and grew fond of the little girl. Sometimes he let her stay with me at night, but then he stopped. I think he was afraid she would like me too much. One night, a boy knocked on my door. Jacopo was dying and wanted me to come. I dressed quickly and ran there. The child was asleep in a corner, too tired to wake up. Jacopo was very weak. "Sally," he said, "I lived a bad life, but I don't want harm to come to the child. Many will try to take her for money, but if you want her, she is yours." I cried, "Yes, I will take care of her." He gave me a locket and said he had stolen her but kept this from her past. Maybe one day it would help find her family. Then he died, and she became mine. "You call her Lady Jane?" I asked. "Yes, there is a crown on her locket. She must be from a noble family. Do you ever fear losing her?" Sally's eyes filled with tears. "If she finds her true family, I will let her go. God gave her to me for a short time, and I am grateful." At that moment, the bell rang and new customers entered. I left, feeling I had met someone truly noble. The next afternoon, I went to pick up Bella. I wanted to arrive late enough to see Dr. Sally and her beautiful ward again. On the way, I bought a bunch of roses for Lady Jane. When I opened the door, the little surgeon jumped up like Jack in the Box. "Is the patient well?" I asked. "She is completely cured," Sally said proudly, showing me Bella. The white glue had worked perfectly. Her neck looked as if it had never been broken. I paid Sally her small fee and handed her the roses. "These are for Lady Jane." Sally's face lit up. "It's closing time. Would you like to give them to her yourself?" I was happy to accept. The sitting room was warm and lovely, very different from the hospital. The curtains were blue, and soft chairs matched them. There were little decorations that made it feel like a lady's room. Lady Jane gasped with joy when she saw the roses. As she placed them in a delicate vase, Sally asked her to sing. Her voice was soft, clear, and full of feeling. Sally smiled. If no better future comes, she can sing her way to good luck. Lady Jane laughed. "Oh, I'll have something better. When I come to my own, like the princesses in fairy tales, I'll send you my picture, Sally. It won't need dresses or eat all the strawberries for supper." Sally's eyes filled with tears, but she only said, "Yes, dear. I want you to find your true place." "A lovely, blue-hung dungeon," Lady Jane joked. As I left, I wondered, did this beautiful girl truly love the one who raised her? If she found her real family, would she even care? I stayed in London until the season ended in July. Then I traveled to France. The next May, I returned to London and passed the Dolls' Hospital. On impulse, I went inside. Sally appeared as promptly as ever, but something had changed. The light in her face was gone. "Do you remember me, Dr. Sally?" I asked. A small, trembling smile appeared. "Yes, you brought roses for Lady Jane. And is she well?" "I hope so," Sally whispered. "But I don't know. The old days are over." She led me to the sitting room. It looked the same, but without Lady Jane, it felt cold. "Will you tell me what happened?" I asked gently. Sally sighed. "Not long after you left, a lady saw my sign and came in with her little girl. When I saw the child, I knew she looked exactly like Lady Jane did when I first found her. Then Lady Jane herself entered the room. The lady stared at her as if seeing a ghost. She reached out and touched the locket. Then, turning to Sally, she asked, in a voice both gentle and firm, "Who is this girl? And how did she come to be here?" Sally took a deep breath and said, "I told her everything, just as I told you." Before I finished, she was crying as if her heart would break. She fell to her knees, wrapped her arms around Lady Jane, and sobbed. "Oh, my darling, my love, I thought you were dead. I am your mother. Please believe me. Love me, even just a little, after all these years." Lady Jane, as if she had rehearsed it 100 times, simply said, "I always expected you, Mama." The lady looked startled. She wiped her tears and stood, holding her daughter's hand. "You expected me?" she asked. "Yes," Lady Jane said calmly. "I always knew I had been stolen. I imagined what my real mother would look like, what my true home would be. I didn't know when or how, but I knew you would come someday." "And when will you be ready to come with me?" her mother asked. "Whenever you wish, Mama." The lady hesitated and then turned to me. "I owe you so much more than I can ever repay. But her father and I have missed Jane for so long. Could you spare her to me at once?" I tried to steady my voice. "That is for you and her to decide, ma'am. I only ever wanted her to be safe and happy. I won't stand in her way now." The lady looked at her younger daughter. "Ethel, this is your sister. We lost her for 8 years, but now we will never lose her again." Then she turned to leave, walking away with her 2 beautiful daughters by her side. But just as they reached the door, Lady Jane paused. She turned back. "Oh, ma'am, that moment is my greatest treasure." She chose to come back to me. "Sally," she said, "don't think I'm not sad to say goodbye. I can't be unhappy about finding my real mother and home. But I am sorry to leave you." Then she wrapped her arms around my neck and kissed me, just like the night I took her from Jacopo 6 years ago. And then she left. The sunshine went with her, and it has never returned. Sally fell silent, her tears quiet and unnoticed, as if no one had ever wiped them away. After a pause, I asked, "When did you see her again?" "Oh, never. I think she knew it would hurt me too much to say goodbye again. But her mother sent me £500. She should have," I said. It was the least she could do. Sally's eyes filled with reproach. "Do you think I wanted that?" My payment was having her here, to look at, to love. I sent the money back. But 2 months later, I received the only gift I would have wanted, her portrait. "Look behind you." I turned. There she was, even more beautiful than before. Silken clad, elegant, a lady in every way. Yet something was missing. No warmth, no heart in that fair, smiling face. "She is lovely," I said. "Yes," Sally whispered. And sometimes I almost feel her lips touch my cheek again, hear her voice saying, "Don't think I'm not sorry." Oh, my life isn't hard. I might have lived without ever knowing what it is to truly love someone. God was good to me. And after all, ma'am, there's no greater happiness than giving all the joy you can to someone else. As I left, I knew Dr. Sally had found life's true secret.